Thanks to all the Green Party candidates who came out tonight, and I want to thank everybody who's here. This is fantastic. I think I count about 65, 70 people here, and that's really, I'm enthused. I'm thrilled, in fact. I was kind of surprised by all the press that we got yesterday, and I'm really hoping that we can continue to raise momentum and build enthusiasm throughout the 1st Congressional District and throughout Connecticut, in fact, for our candidacies. I've got a couple of things that I want to say and I almost don't know where to start, but I took the bar exam earlier this summer and it was really difficult, and afterwards we took a road trip. And on the road trip we drove through America, and we went down south, and I got a real good chance to see what's happening in other parts of the country. We stopped actually in Vicksburg, Mississippi, and we went through an old Civil War battlefield. And Vicksburg is an important battlefield because Mississippi is flat for hundreds of miles. I shouldn't say hundreds, but probably a couple hundred miles. And then all of a sudden Vicksburg rises as a bluff over the Mississippi River, and it's gorgeous, and the battlefield is it's sacred space. 20,000 people died there, many of them from starvation and disease, which are more of the evil parts of war that we don't always consider when we talk about weapon systems and things like that. While I was in the visitor center at Vicksburg, I saw a little book about 75 pages thick, and it was the narrative of Sojourner Truth. And I thought, all right, I'm going to grab that book, because it was $2.75. It was the best $2.75 I've spent in a long time, because I didn't know that Sojourner Truth, after she earned her freedom as a slave when she was 20 years old, that she ended up coming through Connecticut. She walked from Bridgeport up through New Haven to Bristol, and then she was in Berlin, and then she was in Kensington, and she ended up in Hartford. And she actually, her final destination was Northampton, further up the Connecticut River. But Sojourner Truth's story made me feel so powerful, because here's an illiterate escaped slave who had the nerve to go into a courthouse in 1821 and say, I want my son back. My former owner sold him out from under me to an owner down in South Carolina, and I want my son back. And she said that she felt like she had the power of a nation when she walked into that courthouse. And to me, that's what I feel like we're doing right now. We're building the power of the nation. And when I look at the candidacies that we have in front of us, we are all heirs of Sojourner Truth. We are here where Sojourner Truth was. Left Vicksburg, Mississippi, we made a little stop in Natchez, Mississippi to visit a close family friend. And then we went down to New Orleans. And when we were down in New Orleans, we saw the destruction from Hurricane Katrina still devastating the lower 9th Ward. Every other house still has a red X on it. And you're sitting there saying to yourself, well, how is this possible? Why haven't we done anything? And then you look and say to yourself, well, we have a dysfunctional Congress, and we have a dysfunctional Senate, and we have a dysfunctional two-party system that doesn't allow us to create the reforms to help the people in the urban core. And these are people who don't necessarily have voices, and I've spent a lot of my life trying to find ways that we can give voice to the voiceless. And I'm really proud. I'm really thrilled to see so many people here from Echoes from the Streets turn out. We got Tasha Matthew and Takia Matthew here, who are writers who I met like 10 years ago, and they're still living up in the North End struggling to get along. And it's much like, their situation is much like what we've seen in what I saw in New Orleans. And then when you talk to some of the people in New Orleans, they're saying, well, that oil spill down in the Gulf was really devastating our industry, because you don't think that the fishing boats that can't go out and fish, they need ice in order to catch their fish. And so the industries in New Orleans that made ice, those people are out of work because there are no fishing boats and there's no need for ice. So the sort of longitudinal ripples that run across the economy has hurt not just the coastal areas of the Gulf, but the inner city. Then we traveled further down and we went to Grand Isle, Louisiana, which is the beach that was hit the hardest. And I knelt down on a beach, and I felt tar balls in between my fingers. They feel a little bit like Play-Doh, but they smell like diesel. And then the day after that, believe it or not, we had been dealing strictly with the Coast Guard, and I ended up in a BP helicopter. I'm not sure how that happened, but I'm pretty sure that congressional oversight is needed to make sure that that consortium between BP and the Coast Guard that's keeping us from gaining the true information about what happened in the Gulf of Mexico needs to be stopped. So we're in a helicopter overlooking the Gulf of Mexico. We didn't see any oil spill, and the captain of the helicopter told us beforehand, you're not going to see any oil. The thing that surprised me more was the 55 years of destruction that the oil industry has wrought in southern Louisiana. And Jeff Russell talked about it, Charlie talked about it, Scott talked about it. We have to take concrete steps in order to be sure that we are reducing our environmental footprint as we live this modern life. And as I run for Congress here, I'm still learning how to do the pause thing, you know. I'll get it though, I'll get it. So when I went down on this trip, it really inspired me and said to myself, we need some leadership that's going to push the federal government in a direction. And I thought to myself that, hey, the 1st Congressional District has an open ballot with the Green Party, and it's time for me to step up and be a leader. It's time for me. I think every single one of us who's in this room right now has to have that same moment. Maybe you don't need a road trip to New Orleans. I sure enjoyed mine. But maybe you can find it somewhere else where you can step up and say, I need to be a leader. I need to bring people out to rallies like this. I need to use word of mouth in order to educate people about the issues that are facing us. Because, you know, I got interviewed a couple of times yesterday, and I'd spent 30 minutes on the phone with a reporter, and I only get 1 or 2 sentences in the story, and I wonder what happened to the rest of it. And I know, as a former reporter, I'm completely guilty of it. So that's why word of mouth is so important. We need to use social media. We need to use Facebook and Twitter and our phones. One of the things that I want to do on this campaign is we want to fan people out across the 1st Congressional District, the 2nd, the 3rd, wherever, and have people pick up their cell phones. I gave mine so it wouldn't ring, but pick up their cell phones and say, hey, will you call your congressman and tell him that you're against the war in Iraq? Because make no mistake, whatever President Obama said last night, it's the same thing that President Bush said in 2006, and it's the same thing that his father said in 1991. I felt like I had deja vu for the 3rd time when I heard him say, there's an end to major combat operations in Iraq. Well, I remember when I was 19 and I heard that in 1991. And I remember when I heard President Bush say it, and then in June of 2006, President Bush said, we're going to keep 50,000 troops in Iraq indefinitely. And that's where we are today. 50,000 troops in Iraq indefinitely. That isn't an end to the war.
Bring him home!
Bring him home.
Bring him home!
I want to close up by saying that I have a lot of respect for Congressman John Larson. He's the embodiment of the American dream. He's a school teacher who rose to be the 4th most powerful man in the United States House of Representatives. I can only hope that something like that happens to me. A lowly journalist ends up rising to a position of political power. But on the way up, some things happen, and Congressman Larson has changed. And while he is out here, I mean, it's admirable. Today he issued a press release that said he's going to try and get 4 soldiers free LASIK eye surgery as they come back from Afghanistan. It's good. I'm impressed. But we need to do more. We need to bring home all the troops from Afghanistan. We need to bring home all the contractors. We need to bring home everybody who's in Iraq. Not only that, we need to stop the unmanned aerial drone attacks that are happening on the border in Pakistan, that are happening in Yemen, that are happening in Afghanistan. Because these are acts of war that we don't have permission to do. And so I'm hoping that by running for Congress, I can ask Congressman Larson these questions and ask him to come and say, well, please explain your decisions. Why in 2000, Congressman Larson, did you vote in favor of the Commodity Futures Modernization Act, which led to the repeal of Glass-Steagall? He needs to explain some of these things to us so we can understand why houses on our streets are in foreclosure. He needs to explain some of these things to us, as Jason said, why are our elementary schools clothing, but we can afford more money for war? So I want to thank thank everybody here so much for coming out. I'm humbled by the fact that so many people have turned out to support me. It really means a lot, and so let's go get them, all right?